So Latsch is enjoying some food. Does anybody have any questions out there? Because if not, if you haven't noticed, I'm pretty good at just droning on.
How long can they live?
One at a time. No offense. We'll start. We'll go with you right here.
How long can they live in both out and in?
Yes. Usually when anyone asks like one or the other, I'll always say the second one. So when it comes to eagles in the wild, they typically see about 20 to 25 years. But inside, you take away all the negative factors like human impacts of car accidents and lead poisoning. Other eagles, because eagles are very territorial toward other bald eagles. And then getting things like food every day. Getting a weighted food every day, so they get a nice proper maintenance amount of food to keep them in a nice healthy diet. All of these factors, they can see 30 to 40 years of age. Wow. Yep. Great question to ask. I'll go you right back there real quick, because I know they both kind of went at the same time. Yeah?
I said, what was he eating?
What was he eating? He was eating the upper portion of a rat.
Big rat.
Yep. Oh yeah. Yep. Full-sized rat. We also have mice here, but those mice are actually mainly for our red-tailed hawk Hollywood outside our rat tails. Because when it comes to fish days, Hollywood, she's a red-tailed hawk. She doesn't eat fish. Outside of our one live feeding that we do are the giant pike minnows that we feed them for our behind the scenes, which is pretty cool. But yeah, Latsch is having a lovely chunker rat today. Great question. Yeah, whatever.
It's not a question, but in the state of New Hampshire, we live on the Connecticut River.
Yep.
And there's been, in the last 5 to 7 years, a big increase in the sighting of eagles. Because there was, I forgot just what it was, but there was something that was causing the eggshells to become soft.
Yes.
And so that was taken care of, and it's really kind of neat that you can go out and see it on the river now.
Oh yeah, bald eagles, they have made a tremendous comeback since the days of DDT.
Yeah.
Dichloro, okay, work with me. We always just call it DDT, but dichloro-diphenyl trichloroethane. I always want to say ethylene, but that's not a word. But yeah, DDT, it was a post-World War II pesticide that fortunately did eradicate malaria in the United States for us. But, like you mentioned, it was actually building up in the fatty tissues in each level of the trophic level, so the food chain. And what was happening is that in bald eagle females, their deposits of calcium to produce eggshells were being confused for DDT. And alas, we're producing those soft shell eggs. So even under their 10-pound frame, because usually you're making eggs that your weight can withstand, they were still just under 10 pounds on average, crushing their future generations. Because we banned it back in 1972, which was really cool, we've since been seeing very much an increase in the rise of bald eagles. So they've actually been taken off the endangered species list and have been off the endangered species list since 2007, which is pretty cool.
Do they breed in captivity?
Great question to ask. Do they breed in captivity? We do not here at the National Eagle Center. One, you need permitting for that, but because we work with only those that are permanently injured, we make sure that we don't introduce any other extra ways to further harm yourself. And because they're doing so healthy in the wild, there's just no real reason to. And because all of our ambassadors got injured so young, they really don't have those big internal drives to mate necessarily. And kind of at the end of this spiel, once Latsch goes back home to his crate, I got a good hypothetical about the ambassadors that you get to meet over in the other space.
How do they choose their mate in the wild?
Oh, great question. So we actually have a display for that on our second floor, right when you get up the stairs, or it's a few, probably about 20 feet towards the stairs if you come out of the elevator. It is a cartwheeling display. So the first date for bald eagles is flying high together as a pair, and then imagine going skydiving with your significant other, but instead of strapping yourselves together with straps, you just curl your toes and clutch them together. So they actually lock their feet together, and then they start to cartwheel down towards the ground from high altitude and separate before they hit the bottom to show signs of strength and endurance towards their mates. Because bald eagles are actually not in it for the love, they're in it for a strong reproductive clutch. So they want to make sure that they have very strong, hardy offspring. So that means if you're not strong enough to mate with me, I don't want anything to do with you. Great question to ask. It can be confused with crabbing when they do fight with their feet in the air. Yeah, right
Do
here.
they have a sense of hearing?
Do they have a sense of hearing? So their hearing, from what we believe, is that it's a little bit worse than ours, if not about the same. And that's because their ear is only about a centimeter wide, about an inch behind their head, or their eye. And that is covered by a bunch of follicle feathers, so they basically live their life with earmuffs on their ears. But great question to ask. Owls, their ears are usually much more exposed, And because they have that large facial disc, sound actually gets dispersed off of that facial disc and travels up to their ears, making them perceive sound much easier and clearer. And actually, owls are much more of an audible hunter. Bald eagles and other eagles, they're much more of a visual hunter, so they're primarily reliant on their eyesight. That's actually why whenever people ask, like, aren't you scared of his beak? Latsch would actually never want to, especially having only one good eye left, he'd never want to jeopardize the safety of that eye by using his beak. His beak is basically that last-ditch defensive effort. Any defending they need to do, they're going to try to do with those feet of theirs. Like Latsch, if he wanted to, and if he, at any given time, he could go through this glove like it was made out of hot butter. But it goes to kind of the sense of the training and the amount of choice that we give our ambassadors to make them so successful in their lives. Because I could have went into that crate and asked Latsch to come out. He could have told me no. Because here at the National Eagle Center, our ambassadors are trained via choice. So they have a say of what they get to do in their lives. And that's really cool because that helps empower them because, like I kind of mentioned, they never asked for those permanent injuries. But it's in my power to recognize their body language and behavior, like Latsch's body language, to tell you that you are all being amazing. Because Latsch is beyond comfortable right now. He is so fluffy. I'm going to try and give him just a slight little turn. But if you notice in the front of him, he has a big wall of feathers, or what I call his sweatpants on. That's because you're making this a comfortable space where he can let loose. So that's why you can barely see the yellows of his ankles. Does anybody have any follow-up questions? Yeah?
Do the females look the same as the males?
Great question. Do the females look the same as the males? Females, plumage-wise, virtually identical. The biggest thing is what we display in called reverse sexual dimorphism, where females are typically about a third larger than the males are. So the only way you'll really know who's who is by who's bigger when they're standing right next to each other.
This morning I saw 2 eagles on a log. Were they couple?
They could have been a couple, especially at this time of the year. We're at the tail end of breeding season. So this is that time of the year where mates are slowly starting to separate from each other. So odds are you definitely could have seen a pair this morning. Well, everyone, I regret to say I'm looking at the clock, and I unfortunately have to set Latsch back in this crate. So I will be bringing him back.
Bye, Latsch. You've been a good boy.
Awesome job.
Very good boy.
And positive reinforcement in the eagle's case is making sure that I'm always giving him a tip for his time. Thank you, sir.
How many hours a day is he in there?
Is he in his crate? Very little, only when he has to go either to the vet or go to a program. So his crates, outside of it being his dressing room, is also his car. It helps him travel. But outside of that, they're only ever crated when they need to go somewhere. Outside of this, Latsch has an entire, pretty much, he has a whole space bigger than my whole bedroom. So the minimum size of an eagle space is 120 feet, square feet. Our smallest new mew space that we built is 122. Our biggest one, almost double that. So he has a full space of his own in the back area that he lives in. Unfortunately, because of high pathogen avian influenza, aka bird flu, we're on the decline. We're almost being able to open up avian care to the public, but because we're taking such strict sanitation protocols, like if you see me back in avian care after this program, and you notice, I will not have these shoes on. I will have scrubbed down my exposed skin, and I will have changed my boots that have been sanitized. So we have a lot of strict safety protocols. But yeah, so we have a lot of protocols in place. But fortunately for us, the transition to human and bird, very, 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 very slim, if not rare. And the best part is that it actually doesn't contract back. So if one were to pass it to me, I can never give it back to them. Thing is though, if one of them had it, well, odds are we wouldn't see them within the next 7 days. I gotta say thanks for coming to see us. I really do appreciate it.